it's my night, I'm the pumpkin guy. On All Hallows Eve, I'll fly through the sky.
Back in the 80s and 90s, Halloween cartoons weren't just spooky, they were straight up nightmare fuel. Hidden behind goofy animation and cheerful music were moments that left kids wide open and sleepless. Ghosts, pirates, cursed houses, these weren't your average Saturday morning laughs. They were the ones that made you double check your closet before bed. Let's rewind to the golden age of childhood TV and relive 5 Halloween cartoon specials that traumatized every 80s and 90s kid. If you love finding hidden secrets from old shows, hit subscribe, drop a comment with your favorite 80s cartoon, and check out the DVD box sets below to relive these chilling classics all over again.
Why won't you take us to the door?
Things.
Every 90s kid remembers Tiny Toon Adventures as the bright, goofy cousin of Looney Tunes. All pranks, laughter, and slapstick chaos. But in 1995, the show took a hard left turn. Out of nowhere came Night Ghoulery, a Halloween special that looked innocent enough until you actually watched it. What started as a lighthearted parody ended up giving kids genuine nightmare fuel. The episode was structured like Rod Serling's Night Gallery, with Babs Bunny stepping into his shoes, introducing each painting as the new spooky tale behind it. Cute idea, right? Except the stories that followed, way darker than anyone expected. Take The Telltale Vacuum, a parody of Poe's The Telltale Heart. Plucky Duck becomes obsessed with Hampton's vacuum cleaner, slowly losing his mind until he destroys it, only for it to come back with attachments. Yeah, haunted vacuum cleaner haunting its killer. Kids tuned in for the laughs, not guilt-driven psychological horror. Then came Sneezer the Sneezing Ghost, where Furball literally melts trying to capture a ghost. The parody of Casper the Friendly Ghost quickly turns disturbing when you realize this cat is basically dying over and over again for a witch's amusement. And it only got stranger from there. The Devil Dog on the Moors had gothic fog, creepy howls, and jump scares that were straight out of The Hound of the Baskervilles. Even Babs, the show's eternal jokester, looked genuinely terrified when that demon dog appeared.
Yeah, right. That's the Devil Dog?
Aye, be still as an elk, or he'll gobble you. Kibble, kibble!
Spoiler, it was Byron Bassett, but for a few minutes, no one was laughing. The special was stuffed with horror nods, Frankenstein Duel, The Devil and Daniel Webster, Night of the Living Dead, and Twilight Zone. A Gremlin on a Wing was a Twilight Zone parody so good it scared kids into checking airplane windows for months. Plucky screaming like William Shatner, "There's something on the wing," was funny until that gremlin actually showed up with glowing eyes and razor claws. The animation team didn't hold back either. Tokyo Movie Shinza, the same studio that animated Batman the Animated Series, gave everything a cinematic look. Shadows, fog, thunder, and angles that felt way too real for Saturday morning TV. But here's where things get extra weird. Night Ghoulery was actually the final TV appearance of the original Tiny Toons gang. After this, they vanished. Fans still talk about how eerie that is. The show that defined a generation ended with a horror special, almost symbolic, like a final spooky farewell. And the trivia behind it? Wild. This was Don Messick's last time voicing Hampton J. Pig before his death. It also featured cameos from Animaniacs characters like Baloney the Dinosaur and the Brain, hinting at the Doom spin-off Pinky, Elmira, and the Brain. And there's a rumor about the world's biggest Tiny Toon fan, supposedly based on a real-life stalker who sent letters to voice actress Tress MacNeille. The story blew up online, but creator Tom Ruegger later denied it. Still, it added a creepy meta layer that fans couldn't ignore. And just to make things even stranger, there's an uncut version of Night of the Living Doll that has never been uploaded to YouTube. It reportedly included new scenes that were cut before being too intense. Every Halloween, fans ask the same question: when will we ever see that version? For years, this VHS was nearly impossible to find. It never got a proper DVD release, which only deepened its cursed cartoon aura. To this day, collectors trade grainy bootleg copies online like they're passing around an urban legend. So why did it traumatize kids? Because Night Ghoulery broke the rules. It wasn't supposed to scare you. It was supposed to make you laugh. But instead, it hit that perfect storm of dark comedy, creepy music, and what did I just watch moments. You could handle Elmira chasing animals or Plucky falling into paint cans, but once the ghosts, demons, and devil dogs showed up, it felt like you'd stumbled into forbidden territory. Fun fact, when the special re-aired on the CW's Vortex block in 2012, they actually cut out the Pumpkin Guys song, the Halloween anthem for the special. Maybe it was too weird, maybe it was too haunting, but fans still hum it every October.
I wonder what hides beyond this door. It just might be what I'm looking for.
And here's the best part. This was supposed to be a kids show, but ask any 90s kid who saw it and they'll tell you Night Ghoulery didn't just parody horror, it was horrible. Nickelodeon had Rugrats and Hey Arnold, but Cartoon Network, that's where things got weird. And nothing was weirder or more deeply scaring than Courage the Cowardly Dog. Every episode flirted with the uncanny, but one in particular lodged himself into childhood nightmares forever. Freaky Fred. It starts like a visit from an odd uncle. Muriel's nephew Fred is coming over. Seems harmless, right? But the second Fred steps off that bus, everything feels wrong. He smiles too wide, talks too soft. His words rhyme like a creepy nursery rhyme. The words you hear are in my head. I am very naughty. He's polite, gentle, but something's off. Courage knows it. We know it. But Muriel, bless her heart, thinks he's just eccentric. Eustace, of course, locks Courage and Fred together in the bathroom by accident. And that's when the horror begins. Fred starts reminiscing about how his naughtiness began, trimming up his hamster fur, then his girlfriend's, until he couldn't stop. The scissors become his obsession. The sound, snip, 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 echoing through the bathroom as Courage hides in terror. One by one, Fred trims away Courage's fur until he's bald, trembling, and covered in the words, "With love, Fred." Kids weren't ready for that. This wasn't your typical cartoon villain. Fred wasn't a monster or a ghost. He was human. Too human. His calm tone and eerie smile felt real. Even his backstory, being sent to the home for freaky barbers, sounded like something you'd overhear in a whispered adult conversation, not Saturday morning TV. Visually, the episode was pure nightmare fuel. The washed out lighting, the echoing footsteps, the shadows stretching across the floor, and that unnerving background score that felt straight out of a psychological thriller. Courage's wide, trembling eyes told every kid watching, "You're not safe here either." And here's what makes it worse. Fred's voice. That chilling sing-song narration, that's British actor Paul Schoeffler, delivering every rhyme like poetry and madness rolled into one. My hair, it grows so fast, someday I'll cut the whole world's mass. It's poetic, terrifying, and unforgettable.
Courage. Your hair. It reminds me of the first time I knew just how I felt about hair.
But the horror wasn't just in the visuals, it was in the implication. This episode subtly touched on obsession, compulsion, and the thin line between sanity and madness. Things no kid understood, but every kid felt. Behind the scenes, creator John R. Dilworth was inspired by old horror films and surreal art. He once said that Courage was designed to reflect fear itself. Each monster represented a different kind of anxiety, loneliness, rejection, loss. Fred? He represented violation. The idea that someone can hurt you while smiling, pretending they're helping. And the fans still talked about it. To this day, Freaky Fred tops every list of most disturbing Cartoon Network episodes ever made. The animation may look simple now, but the unease it created still lingers. The same quiet dread you felt when the scissors went snip. Fun fact, the original pilot for Courage the Cowardly Dog, the chicken from outer space, was nominated for an Academy Award. Yep, the same guy who made a dog-shearing cereal barber episode once competed with Wallace and Gromit. Critics didn't know what to make of it. Some called it a fascinating blend of horror and humor. Others warned parents about the graphic cartoon violence. But for kids of the late 90s, it wasn't the gore that stuck with us. It was that feeling of dread that never left. Every time Courage screamed, every time Fred whispered, "naughty," we felt something new, something kids' shows weren't supposed to make us feel.
I filled with joy, I filled with sighs, and that's when I got naughty.
Fear. Real, quiet, psychological fear. If you grew up in the early 90s, chances are you caught an episode of Batman the Animated Series that made you leave the lights on at night. Gotham was already dark, but when the Scarecrow showed up, things went from Saturday morning cartoon to full-blown nightmare. Fear of Victory, which aired in 1992, started like any other crime-fighting episode. Robin and his colleague Buddy watching a football game. But then, without warning, the story took a terrifying turn. Athletes began having panic attacks mid-game, collapsing in fear as the crowd screamed. One moment they were champions, the next, they were trembling wrecks, seeing monsters where players should have been. It turns out Scarecrow had found a way to weaponize fear like never before. His latest toxin didn't just make people afraid, it turned adrenaline itself into terror. Imagine being scared every time your heart raced. Every time you felt excitement, it flipped into panic. For kids watching, that idea alone was bone-chilling. Robin himself fell victim to it. In one unforgettable scene, he's clinging to the side of a skyscraper, shaking so hard he can't move. Batman's dangling just below, calling for help, and Robin can't do anything but freeze. That image, the boy wonder paralyzed by fear, hit kids hard. Even heroes, it seemed, weren't safe from nightmares. Behind the scenes, the show's creators pushed boundaries on purpose. Writer Henry T. Gilroy once said that Batman the Animated Series was meant to trust kids with darker stories. And this episode proved it. With gothic visuals, eerie silence, and that relentless ticking of fear, Fear of Victory felt less like a cartoon and more like a mini horror film. Fun fact, the Scarecrow's redesign terrified censors so much that later episodes had to tone him down. His stitched burlap face and lifeless eyes gave him an almost real monster energy. And while the show aired on weekday afternoons, the studio lit it like a noir horror film.
No closer, Batman! Unless you want a stampede of half-crazed humanity crushing and clawing each other.
All deep shadows, fog, and orange Halloween glow. By the end, Robin overcomes his fear to save the day, swinging down to catch Scarecrow's toxin midair before it can infect the whole stadium. It's a triumphant ending, sure, but the fear never really left. Ask any 90s kid who watched it live, and they'll tell you that episode wasn't just spooky, it was psychological warfare disguised as a cartoon. And just when you thought Gotham had cornered the market on childhood trauma, another animated series took scary for kids to a whole new level. One that crawled straight out of your closet. Before the real Ghostbusters hit Saturday morning TV, no one expected an animated spin-off of a comedy film to give kids actual nightmares. But then came The Boogeyman Cometh. Even the title sounds like a threat whispered under the bed. The episode starts simple enough. Two kids, Kenny and Megan, show up at Ghostbusters HQ begging for help. They're scared of the boogeyman living in their closet. Cute setup, right? Except when the Ghostbusters check it out, there's something in there. Something that looks like it crawled out of a child's worst dream. A towering creature with horns, glowing eyes, and a head far too big for its body. But here's the real twist. Egon, the blonde scientist, instantly freezes and says, "It's him."
Egad! It's him.
Okay, let's earn some money.
Turns out the boogeyman used to haunt Egon as a child, and he's never gotten over it. That revelation hit differently. Every kid watching suddenly realized that maybe their heroes had monsters under their bed too. The boogeyman wasn't a ghost, so the Ghostbusters' usual traps didn't work. Instead, Egon built a bomb, not to destroy him, but to seal his realm forever. Which meant, of course, that they had to follow him into it, and that's where things got surreal. The boogeyman's world was a nightmare carnival of floating doors, each one opening into another child's bedroom around the world.
A sort of in-between place that opens into children's rooms all over the world.
The team chased him through twisting dimensions, falling through closets, looping over impossible landscapes. For kids at home, this was pure horror wrapped in neon animation. It played on a universal fear that the door in your room might lead somewhere you can't come back from. Aegon finally faces his childhood tormentor head on. The boogeyman mocks him, promising to deal with those Carter children next. Then, and this part scared kids forever, the boogeyman almost wins. He's massive, grinning, unstoppable. It's only when the Carter kids throw marbles at him, tripping him up, that Aegon detonates the ghost bomb. The explosion seals the boogeyman's world in a swirl of orange smoke, closing the portal for good. Except, it's not over. Back at HQ, Peter Parker, voiced by Lorenzo Music, who also voiced Garfield, fun fact, opens his closet and something grabs his clothes. For a split second, you think Boogeyman is back. Turns out, it's just Slimer. Funny ending, sure, but for millions of kids, that moment burned one question into their brains. What if he comes back tonight? Fun fact, the real Ghostbusters had top-tier talent behind the scenes. Maurice LaMarche, Aegon, went on to voice the Brain from Pinky and the Brain, and J. Michael Straczynski, yes, the guy behind Babylon 5, was one of the show's main writers. That's why the show's tone was so unexpectedly adult. Even Bill Murray himself questioned why his cartoon counterpart sounded like Garfield, which, ironically, he'd later go on to play in the movies. Kids back then didn't realize it, but the real Ghostbusters wasn't just about catching spooks, it was about facing childhood fears, the ones that never really go away. That's why decades later, fans still talk about the Boogeyman Cometh in Reddit threads and trauma posts. It wasn't just scary for its time, it defined what too scary for kids really meant. Nickelodeon had Rugrats and Hey Arnold, but in 1985, CBS gave us something far stranger, Garfield's Halloween Adventure. On paper, it sounded simple. The world's laziest cat goes trick-or-treating. But what we got instead was a full-blown ghost story that left kids wide-eyed for decades. This was the special that proved even a cartoon cat could be terrifying. It begins like any cozy Saturday morning, Garfield snoozing, TV flickering, until the unhinged Binky the Clown bursts through the screen screaming, "Good morning, boys and girls," at maximum volume. Fun fact, this was Binky's first ever animated appearance, and he was so chaotic that even Garfield looked scared. After Garfield realizes it's Halloween, he breaks into a song about candy and costumes, spinning around the attic in pure excitement.
This is a night
This is the night
I was created for. I'm gonna put on my best disguise.
He finally settles on a pirate outfit, calling himself Orangebeard, a wink to the real pirate Blackbeard. Little did anyone expect how dark this pirate tale would get. John hands Garfield and Odie a sack for candy, and the two hit the town, trick-or-treating like pros. The background music, fun fact, came from a Yamaha DX7 synthesizer.
Yo ho ho ho, over the raging sea we go. Yo ho ho ho, wherever the four winds blow. Hey!
Giving the scenes that weird echoing vibe that still sounds oddly haunting today. When Garfield notices more houses across the river, his greed kicks in, more candy over there. So they take a small boat, which, fun fact, is named Caroline after creator Jim Davis's first wife. They drift into the mist, and that's when the tone changes. They reach a broken down mansion glowing faintly in the dark. Inside by a crackling fire sits an old man who warns them they picked the wrong night to visit. His voice is deep, trembling, and kids watching could feel something was off. He tells them a tale. 100 years ago, pirates buried treasure beneath the floorboards and swore to return at midnight to reclaim it. Garfield laughs until the man quietly reveals he was the pirate's cabin boy. Then he disappears. Their boat is gone. The clock strikes 12. A ghostly ship rises from the river as fog fills the room. Transparent pirates emerge, dragging chains, digging up their treasure beneath the house. The scene, slow, silent with glowing green light, felt too real for a cartoon. Then Odie sneezes. Every pirate's head turns. The chase begins. Garfield and Odie sprint through the house, crash through the dock, and leap into freezing water. Garfield can't swim. He sinks, and just when it looks hopeless, Odie saves him.
Rats! I forgot. I can't swim.
A rare heroic moment from the goofy dog. When they finally wash ashore, they find their candy and head home. But the ending delivers one last twist. Garfield turns on the TV, and there's the same old man, hosting a pirate movie marathon, wearing Garfield's missing hat. Fun fact, that ending terrified kids for years because it implied the old man might have been one of the ghosts all along. Originally titled Garfield in Disguise, this special became a cult favorite for mixing comfort and fear so perfectly. Warm colors, cozy humor, and then, out of nowhere, real horror. For 80s and 90s kids, Garfield's Halloween adventure wasn't just another cartoon. It was their first true Halloween scare, and it still haunts their nostalgia today. They don't make kids shows like that anymore. Those Halloween specials pushed limits, mixed cozy nostalgia with genuine terror, and left us all a little more cautious about what lurked behind the TV glow. They weren't just cartoons. They were our first brush with fear, disguised as fun. So, which one still creeps into your memories every October? Share your pick in the comments and make sure to like, share, and subscribe for more deep dives into the shows that turn childhood comfort into classic chills. Until then, see you next time.